Meet the Carmichaels is a pretty important episode of Rugrats because, of course, this introduces us to Susie Carmichael, who was definitely one of my favourite characters, at least outside of the main babies. And I have to say, I don't remember this episode, so I was keen to see how they'd introduce her. And on the one hand, it wasn't the best introduction, but at the same time, it kind of was. And I'll explain what I mean by that. But this is the first segment of the 18th episode of the second season of Rugrats, and the Carmichaels are the new neighbours of the Pickles, and Didi goes over to take a jello mold. Apparently it's a tradition to take a jello mold to new neighbours. If anybody knows if that was made up for the show or if that's a thing, please let me know. And while they're there, we meet Susie and Lucy and Randy, who are her parents. And I have to say, Lucy didn't come across as being the most likable character because she seems to be a little too perfect. And Randy doesn't seem to be the nicest character because he seems to be kind of standoffish and not very warm and welcoming. Granted, Stu is all over him because it turns out that Randy is behind the dummy bears. I'd actually forgotten all about the dummy bears, so it was nice to unlock that little memory. But yeah, I feel like for the parents, they didn't come across as intentionally nasty, but they weren't the easiest to like. And initially, Susie wasn't very likable. She was running around, she was screaming, and she seemed kind of annoying. Now, I obviously know that Susie is a very likable character, so it didn't affect my opinion of her, but it did surprise me that it was such a forced kind of negative introduction to her. But she quickly gets on board with Tommy, and there's one moment in this that I really loved that really helped to show that she's not just a second Angelica, which to begin with, she kind of felt like she was. It did annoy me that she kept trying to ask her mother something that was very important to Susie, because she can't find her bedroom in the new house. And that's really important. And Susie even, highlights that a child needs their own bedroom, somewhere to go and be alone or to play with their toys. And she's trying to ask her mother where it is. She's getting traumatized and really upset. And her mother is really dismissive of her, which I hate. I absolutely hate it when adults think they're better than children or their wants and needs are more important than that of children. It's bad parenting, if nothing else, and it really annoyed me. But that meant that Susie and Tommy had to try and work together to find Susie's bedroom. And Tommy had this brilliant idea, and I actually thought it was very clever. He said that sometimes when he falls asleep somewhere else, he wakes up in his bedroom, obviously because the grown-ups have put him to bed while he's asleep. And I thought that's such a clever way of finding your bedroom. Just wake up and it's there. And the scene of them both lying on the floorboards, trying or pretending to sleep, was just absolutely adorable. And credit to Tommy, I thought it was a pretty clever suggestion. I won't say exactly what happens with the bedroom, but I think the narrative developed really well. It did take maybe half the episode for me to start to like Susie, or for me to see the side of Susie that I could remember. But it was at the very end where she did something that I thought, there's your evidence. You're not a second Angelica. So I'll discuss that now with a spoiler warning. I won't be discussing anything else about this episode. So the last thing I want to mention is a big spoiler. Well, kind of, not really a spoiler, but I'm going to discuss what happens at the end. At the end, Didi's walking out with Tommy, and Tommy's smiling at Susie, and Susie says thank you and goodbye to Tommy. And straight away, there's the evidence that she's the antithesis of Angelica. And it's something that we have this older child who's actually nice, who could be a good role model for the babies. And the stories they could have after this are obviously plentiful, and there are all different kinds of things, but also having an opposition for Angelica is exciting. And I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with that, because some episodes I can remember with Susie, but I feel like there are probably some that I don't remember. So I'm looking forward to exploring this character with stories that I perhaps can't remember and seeing what they do with her. But for now, I'd say it started off as a rocky introduction to Susie, not the best introduction for her parents. I've just remembered something that Randy said. As I've given a spoiler warning, I can discuss this. It is a spoiler for something that's funny. In fact, the funniest thing in a while, where he says to his wife, do you know how the realtor told us that this was built on an ancient Indian burial ground, or something along those lines? And he says, do you think he's it? Meaning, is Stu the curse? It amused me a lot. It really did. I found it to be very funny. So really a strong episode, really entertaining. Initially, maybe not the best start for Susie, but that quickly turned around, and I'm really excited to see what else is in store.